which is a prime example of not only classic CW, as you said, Reed, yesterday, but also what we're talking about like television structure and why
Yeah.
it can be so exciting. I mean, their first commercial break is the body swap, is it not?
Yep.
Hmm.
And it makes you want to continue watching. Like they just dropped, you're like, oh, body swap episode, like
That was my
immediately.
exact reaction. I didn't know we were in for a body swap, and when oh my God, I was so excited. It just felt like a jolt of like I don't know. I felt like I took a pop some serotonin. I got a new supplement, and I was like, oh yes, this is television.
Yes. No, the grin on my face when was it Nancy S responded to a question that Nancy was asked. I was like, no, no,
I
we're
know. I was like,
not. Like, are we, is this happening? And then, of course, it was Tunji who nailed it with Bess. Am I dead? Is that my body? And I was like, no, we're actually doing it. And then as soon as we came back from the commercial break, they had all that exposition to catch us up on who was what. I was like, yes, you've got me, hook, line, and sinker. I'm in for this. And whoa, what an adventure came
the
next.
unraveling of that scene was so like it happened so quickly in my brain. It was like, oh, Nancy and Ace switch bodies. What
Mm.
happened to everybody else? Oh, it's not just Nancy and Ace, it's everybody. And it was like realizing what happened in real time. It was like I loved being on that roller coaster ride of figuring out
Yeah.
like what happened.
It's so fun. These last like three episodes, so I'm assuming the fourth one is also going to be fun, but like have been freaking amazing. Like it really is nostalgic. They went into their bag and they were like, we're going to do all the tropes everyone loved when they were watching TV growing
One
up.
after another, we did time travel, we did board game, we did body swap. Who's doing it like this? That's like a
No
pew,
one.
pew, pew. 3 weeks in a row. Bam, bam, bam.
The standalones are really rocking it out the park. I mean, I feel like it also gave us an opportunity to be able to see the actors be truly challenged in the episode because they had to embody each other's different characters and trying to feel like, trying to say like, are they really getting it? It's like they kind of are. Oh my god! Like,
Mhm.
they're Tunji just the whole episode. Well, just was best from the mannerisms, the like
Having a
my
blast.
right. My favorite is after he finishes his speech and he just sits down and crosses his legs and then he just realizes, oh, I can't do that. Like he immediately he was prim for the majority of the episode and it was like the sweetest. And then Reed, you had pointed out how Ace's run, which is actually exactly like
It was
Nancy's run.
he nailed the Kennedy the how do I want to say like the playfulness that Kennedy puts in Nancy sometimes. Like he really like she does a lot of that when she's on her own, Nancy. So he really did his homework to see how Kennedy acts as Nancy when she's apart from the group. She's a silly little menace. He had that crossbody bag on and the way he like held it and like it was hilarious. It was amazing. Just like the little mannerisms they picked up on each other, like just seeing Tunji, I think it was the monologue. Like I could see Madison like saying that the way that he
Mhm.
was speaking. It wasn't the way he speaks as Nick. It was the way Madison speaks as Bess. And it was crazy to see like, oh, I can see Madison, but it's tuned. It was a not gonna say what I was gonna say, a mind bleep. But it was like, oh my god, this is how did they I don't know how they did this. And I think one of the first scenes that Kennedy acts as Ace, I was like, oh, Kennedy's been waiting to do this for a hot minute. Like she was like, let me at it, I'm gonna be Alex all day, and she really killed it.
She
She
did.
did.
She
She,
did. Sorry, you go ahead,
no,
Sabrina.
you go ahead.
I just think she played it with such like a dulled kind of like because Nancy's always so like active and focused, whereas Ace is always dead chill and relaxed, and she did that so well because we did have some of the larger than life performances around her, like we said Tunji's best, incredible. Whereas she kind of had a more like dull down personality to play, and I think you really got to see it when she went to the yacht club and they had to ask, and it was like, what was the line she said? I wrote it down, and I thought it was so much fun. She was like, um, my name is Nancy Hudson, as it says here on my membership card. It was really like quirky little things like Ace would say to try to convince someone, as though because Ace always feels like he has to justify himself. I thought Kennedy got that brilliant. And then was it when the bodies first swapped? You saw Ace like that there, running his fingers through his hair, and she was like, wow, it's really on there, huh? Just going back to like Nancy's obsession with Ace's hair. Loved that. She was so good.
Oh, and then there are two. I really like Alex's interpretation of Nancy trying to snow someone on the phone, with like the water bottles. Oh, we're taking water. You just see the water just swelling. Like, that doesn't sound like a wave, but that's totally Nancy. Or oh, it just popped away from my mind. Oh, the way Kennedy was looking up from under her eyelashes a lot, like because Alex does that as Ace. So like she looked dipped out. I was like, are you looking under your eyelashes at somebody? What is happening right now? Or to me, their best comedic scene is with Captain Tom and the lack of being able to do sign language.
Oh, that was amazing. I can't imagine how difficult it must have been to act as each other in scenes together. They were the only ones really with that issue, because the other three, swapped between the three of them, but they had to act as each other with each other. That must have been such a challenge. And like, I know this is a thing in all body swaps, but for Kennedy to be Alex being Kennedy, it was like she had to interpret playing Nancy, Ace playing Nancy, when she's used to playing Nancy. I can't imagine like how the preparation that took. Like, how would Ace play Nancy when I am Nancy? Like, I can't, like, I'm confused just thinking about it.
Yeah. It's very, I guess it's another testament to her acting ability and also Alex's acting ability. Everybody's really, because like you have Leah at the table being Nick, but also having to be George while George is on a study date. And you can see that it's clearly Nick being George, because the amount of touching that happens in that date when George doesn't really touch people, it kept throwing me off. Obviously, every time we cut to them, like George is touching the date's hand, Cameron's hand. I'm like, George doesn't touch people. You're touching too much.
And it was so nice because it set it up really well that you thought that, oh God, something's going to go horribly wrong. And I think they all did really, really well with everything they had to do. You always do see that in body swaps episodes where people are like, if you live a day in my shoes, things could go so badly or so differently. And they all kind of pulled it off in the end, even though like all of the scenarios had disaster written all over them. But yeah, I thought that Nick playing George came out really, really well in the end. It was really enjoyable. The whole episode, I honestly have very, very little issues with this one. It was one of the best ones because every time it cut between a different arc, I was like, I'm enjoying this, I'm enjoying that. And of course, there was the larger than life sequences, like the Nancy and Ace having to be each other around each other. Like I said, Tunji's best performance. And also, can I just say, I'm going to stop raving about him now, but like the moment, my favorite thing about Tunji's performance was the mannerisms. Because like you guys said, he really nailed Bess. Was it in the first one when he was like, when Bess found out she had to do the speech, he was all like, oh, I should think of some sports metaphors, and just really like animate it. And then when George went to walk off, George, where are you taking my body? Exactly. Like Bess word. Best performance of the episode. I was just in awe of it the whole time.
I know. Again, award-winning performances are happening on the CW, whether they get recognized by the Academy or not. And Madison was good too, because she's not clunky, right? But like with her having to pretend to have George in her body, it's just stomp, 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 and it's a little gruffer. And even when she's like freaking out in the historical society, when those two brothers come, doesn't know what she's doing whatsoever. But then we get like a poignant moment, because like that's usually George's character. We get her freaking out about something, then it connects back to her life, and she's like, my mom heard voices. I mean, my friend's mom heard voices, and I understand how it can ruin lives. And I also like the balance of like supernatural or spiritual things affect people differently, and people embody them differently. Because I did like how the brother was like, our parents say it's like a gift from God, but it's not a gift from God. Like to them it is, but he's losing his brother. So no, we are going to this gift is going back to sender, and that's what they did for them.
It was very poignant, and I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed that scene in particular, because all the actors were where they needed to be in this episode. Like if this wasn't a body swap, all these actors would have been in those scenarios doing those storylines anyway. Like Nancy and Ace would have been investigating, Nick would have been giving a speech, Bess would have been at the historical society, and George would have been on the study debt. But like Reed said, they had to play versions of somebody else playing themselves, and like for George being in I said that right. As George being in Bess's body, that came out, I thought, really, really well, because they were quickly like, business as usual, get this done and move on. But like we've seen in many body swap episodes, they stop and have a moment and think, oh wait, actually I can do some good here, or actually that's meaningful. Let's help somebody out. And then they did get the curse left at the end. I was waiting for something to go horribly wrong, because the curse was such a footnote of the episode, and then they had it stored in the jar, and I was like, is it going to come back out? What's going to happen? But happy to report that didn't happen, other than the worst we got was a little wave on the boat when S sent it over the edge. But yeah, all in all, I just thought all the arcs came together really well. And again, we can harp on about how great the actors were. They all did incredibly well. But yeah, loved it. I don't know how much more I can rave about how each arc I thought lived up to the expectations really, really well.
And it was an emotional episode too, because I guess you would call Body Swap the A plot, but then there's like the B plot is Nancy dealing with the 1 year anniversary of her mom's death and like keeping that to herself. And we haven't even raved about Kennedy's performance at the end. I guess we'll get to that, but the timeline aside, that storyline, I think it was an important one to get closure for Nancy and to see her growth. And yeah, I loved it.
We've come so far since season one. Like that speech she gives to Nick, George, and Bess would not have happened in season one. She just was not in a position to be able to accept this found family that she was cultivating. And for her to be able to vocalize that, to call them her family and tell them that she loves them. I was like, Nancy, girl, don't wreck me. We still have 10 minutes left. Something could go horribly wrong. but like, it was so stunning. And I thought that's where we were going to like leave it. Because I knew they were going to do the party, because we've seen the pictures. You knew they were going to be at Nancy's house, but even though it wasn't clear what they were going to be there for. But then they gave her another speech in which we don't often get to hear Nancy talk about Kate, like in a big group setting, and for her to be able to like do that and speak so lovely about her mother, and then embody the thing her dad wanted her to do at the beginning of the episode, which she had shunned away from, which was to make it fun, to honor her mom by having a lovely cake fight. I think it was gorgeous. It reminded me about some of the things that I really enjoyed about the earlier seasons of Nancy Drew.
Yeah, the way Kennedy, I'm running out of words to praise her, but just to get specific, like when she started the monologue and her voice was shaky and she cracked and she stumbled a little bit, I was like, oh, you just can't learn that in acting school. Like they just can't teach that. It was, and then she kept going, and I was like, I just love watching her work in the way that she continues to interpret this character. And to circle back a little bit to add on to her performance in the claw scene before she gives that speech, the brief moment where you see her wrestling with, am I going to do this? Am I going to open up to them? That was amazing too, before she even gets into it, because Nancy's like, oh, if I do this, it's changing everything. She's like, am I ready for that? And I'm glad she did. But yeah, there's a lot of nuance in Kennedy's performances, whether she was Ace or Nancy. And again, I have no words. I'm without words.
And I love when final seasons do full circle moments. I don't know if this was intentional, because I know they weren't treating this as the final season in the first half of it, but I feel like that was such a full circle moment of growth for Nancy. She has had variations of that over the not years. But all in all, I feel like this was probably the most full circle of them all, the most poignant, the most striking, because she finally accepted that she is no longer on her own. This time last year, I'm still cannot get over that. This time last year, she was on her own. And that was our biggest issue with some of the early episodes. She had all these people wanting to help her, and she was like, you know what, I'm on off into the night to do this on my own. And now she finally realized she almost made that mistake again of thinking that she had to go through this on her own. But in this episode, she actually realized that look at the growth she's underwent in this last year because all these people are around her. And choosing to lean on them, to be emotional with them. And I think it was also kind of interesting that Ace wasn't in those final scenes because obviously Nancy had set him up with on the fishing trip with his dad, but she knows how to be vulnerable around Ace now. We've seen that all season, whereas I still think she's coming to terms with being vulnerable around the rest of the Drew crew, and so I think it was super important that we saw that, and like it was just awesome. I just thought it was just such a meaningful moment of growth for the character. And like we said, Kennedy was just phenomenal in it. And I agree, it did remind me of some of the earlier scenes because every time that tough exterior of Nancy would crack a little bit, Kennedy would get the chance to do a very soft, kind of broken, but also full-hearted kind of performance like that. And I think this was one of the best examples of that where it came together. Yeah, just such a moment of growth for the character. And that if the episode had ended there, I would have been very, very fulfilled with that scene because I thought it was so powerful. But of course, then we did get the more lighthearted version of it at the end, which I think is also very, very needed because this wasn't just Nancy's story. It was Carson's story. And even though he didn't have that many scenes, I do like the fact that eventually by the end of it, even Nancy realized that he was going through it too and that it was still his grief. And so I just thought the fact that it was the Drew crew there to support Nancy, that Ryan was there to support both of them. Yes, he was there for Nancy, but he was also there for Carson. Love the little family they've created on the show.
It's so beautiful that I will have to say justice for Carson because finding out about the year his girlfriend still on my list. Still, I'm like, you don't need to drink out of the teacup, but you certainly don't need to drink out of the teacup when it hasn't even been a year yet. Like, yeah, just a mess.
Yeah. I can't get over that.
So, I mean, I'm glad that he's going to grief counseling and has a support group. I'm assuming that he's still doing that. I expected them to have that full circle moment with Nancy where she realized she needed to give her dad what he needed during this day too, because this is affecting both of them. But his face when he's just trying to accept that she doesn't want anybody in the house and have that be okay. And then being able to talk to Ryan about how much of his grief had to be tempered because he had to take care of Nancy and help her through her grief was hurting me. I was like, I love this scene. It's like this little scene stuck in all this chaos, but it's just so nice that like Carson gets to open up about what's going on with him and with someone who he cares about, who cares about him, who is like a neutral party. And then I love I feel like I'm glad that Ryan actually got the words of your family too, because he needed to hear that. I'm like, Ryan, you clearly are. Y'all are like always together. But I mean, I'm glad they told you because he seems like someone who needs to hear it because of the family he grew up in. He knows what family should look like, and he did not get that growing up.
For a show that's not, I wouldn't ever call this a family drama. Family is an enormous theme in every single character arcs. Like everybody has some sort of generational trauma, issue, struggle, something going on with their family. Most of the cases have to deal with family and the trauma within that in this town. And it was a big moment, I think, for Nancy and both of her dads in the theme of family. Like they all needed to, in different ways, needed that. I always forget that family is such a big theme. Like it's just always so present, but it's this episode is really like, no, family's a big thing in the show. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, it is.
I think that also added the full circle feel because I think family was probably its most important or overarching presence in the show in its first season. And obviously as shows like that go on, you tend to get more roped into whatever the story of the season is. Whereas now I think we're doing a lot of reflecting, which I think is benefiting the show really, really well. And speaking of Ryan and growth, I feel like it was such a gentle scene, but the fact that he was the one that noticed it was Carson's grief too. I thought that was such a huge moment for him because, like we said, Ryan's not used to being around a real family. Of course, he is. He was surrounded by his blood relatives all his life, but that didn't exactly mean anything. Whereas he got to show the growth that he's gone through, particularly with someone he's grown alongside. I cannot put into words how much I love the Carson and Ryan dynamic. And we haven't got to see it as much because they've either been playing the role of dad one that Nancy needs in this episode or dad two that Nancy needs in that episode. This season, they've kind of been on and off and on and off. But the last couple of episodes, we've seen them spend more time together. And every single one of those scenes, I come away with feeling incredibly fulfilled because it's one of my favorite dynamics on the show. And I don't think I would have said that 2 or 3 seasons ago.
Although I'm keeping my eye on Ryan because he did slip in the glass thing. And I'm like, you're going to make this difficult for us, aren't you?
Yes, which is why, but I'm happy that we're getting to that point though, because the season 4 synopsis was killing me with the Nancy has a connection with someone. They didn't mention the glasses, it's the glasses son, but like an enemy's son, and Ryan's not about it. And it hadn't happened yet. So it should be happening soon. Since he's like, she's like, you can't go to war with the glasses. And he's like, it's already happening.
It does kind of feel like we don't have an awful lot of time left, and there are kind of like 2 big bads now, because now we know that the Sin Eater is what the Demogorgon is called. And there's a sentence I never thought I'd say. And we find the Black Door, which terrifying scene. Like Nancy sticking around to grab those books, I would have been up that staircase and out of there. But like, we have this going on, and meanwhile there's the glasses. The glasses were kind of that like wild card last season that helped them stop Temperance, and they were like, oh no, wait a minute, maybe you're kind of evil as well. And we've only had 1 more episode with them since. They're doing an awful lot of building up of them off screen by mentioning them here, mentioning them there. And of course, then there's Tristan, who's just kind of like there for his own purposes. So I don't know how they're going to bring everything together. I do trust the show. I know they'll do a good job of it, but it is going to be an interesting watch because it definitely feels like the Sin Eater and the history and secrets in Horseshoe Bay is the main storyline this season. So how do the glasses factor into that?
I don't know. It will be interesting though, especially because like they haven't given us a lot on the glasses other than their artifact collectors. We've actually now, I think, have gotten more on people, the rich people or the people in power who in Horseshoe Bay who are using the Black Door to their advantage. It's like, oh, of course, the wealthy are walking down the steps in the town hall to read a script on a mirror that summons a creature to eat their sins. This metaphor is amazing. Like, it's not enough that you probably have law enforcement in your pocket. You now have to have a supernatural being as well.
I have a brief hot take.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if that even connects to what you just said because I was like formulating it in my head. But I'm actually like as like frustrated, I feel like, as we might be, that the glasses haven't really appeared. They've just been like this in the background threat, unseen at the moment. I'm actually like kind of okay with them not having a ton of screen time and like maybe circling back toward the end, because I feel like, and this is where the hot take portion comes in, I need everybody to stay with me. Everyone stay with me. Last season, we had Temperance just
that's true,
up and down everywhere, and that storyline took a minute to cook. And I feel like we could have done less of Temperance. No shade, no hate. Again, stay with me. I think we're seeing the opposite of last season, and I don't know which one's better or worse, and we won't know until see episode 13. But at the moment, I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of glad, because who knows if we would have gotten this 1, 2, 3 punch of episodes if the glasses were a bigger presence and a bigger like situation. You know what I mean? Is that a controversial hot take? Am I going to get cooked again?
No, I think you're good. I think that makes a lot of sense actually, because it allows them to set up plot points that perhaps the glasses will actually know more about than Nancy and the rest of the Drew crew. And it allows them to, like you said, to be sort of a threat in the background rather than mustache twirling villains who do a lot of nothing besides like glare at you at the bagel shop or like
The
or
bagel shop, not to
you got to see it. Yeah.
you've been campaigning for the bagel shop.
I was so happy. It's the cutest little storefront too. And then someone online pointed out they also have ice cream. And I was like,
saw that on the sign. I was like, that's random, but cool.
Right?
Horseshoe bagels and ice cream.
And it's just like, you know what? That is like, that needs to be the place to be. That is like where, like, Saturday morning bagels for the Drew crew. Like, just get a little small table outside, y'all. Like, argue
I know
about
that's
it.
like the one peaceful place in town.
You know, it just looked so inviting. Like, I was like, I want to hop in the screen and go order myself a bagel.
And Ace's endorsement means so much to me. So, like, I know it's good, you know?
For sure. But no, I really, I it's because they mentioned the bagel shop so much. I was hoping that we got to see it, and we did, and we got it with the loveliest scene between Tom and Ace, where Tom really just wants to be there for his kid.
Tom had Ace gagged.
He did.
I was like, Tom, you didn't have to do all that. It really came for him. But I was like, oh.
Tom was a dad on a mission. He's like, look, I know something's not right with you, and I know it has to do with Nancy. You don't have to talk about all of it, but I think we should talk about it so you can just get it on the chest.
Made?
Oh, the sad face?
He was like, oh.
And, you know, I think one of the last times we saw him in like a significant presence was the time he threw Ace out. I don't even mind that they had all of that take place off screen because I'm so happy we got to see the endearing relationship between them one or two more times. And like Reed said, he came for Ace, he absolutely did. But like it was loving, like, and I think I love their bond so much. I hope that's not the last we see of them this season because I could watch a whole episode with the two of them just in it.
I don't know. It felt like it felt a lot like closure.
Yeah, very much so.
And I think that was a big thing Ace had to learn apart from any relationship thing. What he took away from this story with Nancy is to appreciate his dad while he's here. And as much as he might be frustrated with these fishing trips, or as much as he doesn't want to do them or whatever, it's important to, you know, cherish those moments because they won't last forever and all you have is your memories. And I think that was what Ace took away from that. That was the big thing, I think, from the phone call. That was kind of, well, no, he did say it. I was gonna say it was unspoken, but he said it. He said, thank you for making me come.
I didn't think we were gonna get that phone call, by the way.
I know, I thought it was gonna end after the cake thing, and I was like, wait, no, that's not how the show goes.
We had
something ominous.
Yeah, we had the gentle fade out, and I was like, oh, that's a nice way to end the episode. But then the ending wasn't that ominous. It didn't tell us anything we didn't already know. But I guess that was just all done so that we could have that phone call between Nancy and Ace. And it was a nice way of like kind of wrapping up this episode's storyline because I suppose this is where we head into the next conversation now. I will say I really, really enjoyed Nancy and Ace in this episode, and here's why. The reason I loved watching them grow closer over the year is because of the simple fact that they were these two unusual parallels that worked very well together like detectives. They were their confidants, even though they didn't kind of know it at the time. And we got to see that one more time. We got to see them be detectives. Yes, there was the hilarious trope of the fact that they were in each other's bodies and they had to learn how the other half lived for a whole day and help each other out. But generally, we just got to see them. They were investigating the Black Door and they got the answers. And I thought that worked really well. And it's nice to see them employing the old techniques to further their new love story arc because we've kind of gotten lost in Destiny at Written in the Stars and all of that over the last couple of weeks. Whereas this was good old fashioned Ness doing what Ness does and reminding us why we fell in love with them and why they maybe fell in love with each other. That I could not have asked for more from this episode. This is my favorite Ness episode of the season so far.
Ooh.
True.
Mic drop.
I do think we had some really nice moments between them, kind of being able to communicate better because they were forced to be around each other because they had to work with one another. There were like two things that I thought were weird though. I don't know why we're saying things like, you know, we've been trying to stay apart. And I was like, no, you haven't been. You have scenes every episode. And which, of course, might go back to the timeline thing where for us, it's feeling like it's days,
Mm-hmm.
or like perhaps even weeks. And we're like, no, it's been like 3 days. So it's like, well, then they haven't been trying to stay apart from one another. But, and then they bring the worst out in each other. The feeling that I was afraid we were going to bring up the worst out in each other. And I was like, you generally don't do that. Even when y'all were fighting, you were still fighting while communicating. Like it wasn't like it broke down into name calling or taking pot shots. It's just, hurt, which you're allowed to express hurt. I mean, I guess if avoidance counts, because Nancy was avoiding Ace in one of the episodes and he didn't like that. He wanted them to like try to be friends again. And she's like, I don't know how to be friends with you right now because, you rejected me. But that I wasn't really feeling. I feel like that wasn't the narrative that they had been telling us. But my God, the golden hour shot. Like when they're both
Yeah.
back in their bodies, I was like, they hit that golden hour. Like, so sorry to all the boys too, which y'all missed that golden hour by a long shot. But they, like Nancy Drew, they hit it. And it was like, I think one of the most gorgeous scenes I've seen on Nancy Drew because it was really just beautiful. And them being able to connect with one another. I think my favorite small Nace moment of this episode is when Ace as Nancy gives Nancy as Ace the locket because he understands how important it is to her. And though she's not in her own body, she should be able to wear the locket that symbolizes both of her mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was like a beautiful way of showcasing how much he knows her and how much it would bother her not to be able to have that piece of her mom's on her.
And then the close up of him giving it to her back, golden hour.
Yes. They were like, we're going to show you what we can do with golden hour. We truly are going to show you.
I will say though, I think those two, like the worst in each other and the staying away from each other, I heard it and I was like, yeah,
You tossed it.
it's like the lowest infraction, I think.
Yeah,
I was
it is.
like I can see it if I really like dig in, but I'm like, it seemed like a simple way to water down or like in the way that these shows do, they try to boil down the character beats of an episode down to a simple thing, and I could see that's what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it didn't like connect it in a way that I was like, yeah, that's what I thought was happening this whole episode, I was like, I feel like you might have missed it by like a millimeter, but whatever. I'll let you have this one. If that's how Nancy and Ace feel, that's how you're telling me they feel. I can do a little bit of math in my head to make it work, but I'm fine. It's fine. Whatever. I'm not gonna get too in the weeds about that one. I can agree with you, and I can also see like the other side where I'm like, sure, that was a fear Ace had, and Nancy's telling herself that she was trying to avoid Ace emotionally. I don't know, physically, you're right. Physically, it's like we've seen it. Maybe that's where that comes in. She had been trying to like not be near him, and then somehow they were always around each other. But yeah, I was like, whatever. I ignore. I pretend I do not see.
It does create emotional resonance though, because it allows for that phone call to be more weighty. After having spent time together all episode, I think that they both really needed to hear how important they are to one another. I believe Nancy said that she wouldn't be happy without Ace in her life, and what did Ace said something similar, but he didn't use the word happy. I just can't remember the full line.
Someone will tell us.
Yes.
Yeah. It was very similar. I remember the same thing. Just don't remember the word.
But it was nice that they were able to, after all of the well of emotion that we've been going through for a good portion of the season, that they were able to say something very heartfelt without, the baggage of them not going forward with their relationship.
I think they feel really safe with each other. And I don't know which one, maybe both, but they wanted to be able to not feel that. And I think maybe being with each other in this kind of way in this episode was kind of like, oh crap, yeah, we do feel safe around each other and it feels good and it feels right.
Mm-hmm. In your rule of fourths for the season, Reed, I think we said this would be the distraction kind of era where they like move on from each other. We thought maybe Tristan would be more involved in that, but it turns out they're just distracting
Yeah.
all of us from the storyline just with
He's
these
been in like 2 episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're just distracting all of us with the storyline with these random standalone episodes, and they're absolutely incredible. I love it when they do it. I hope we get at least one more. But now that we're in the distraction era or whatever, I feel like we're heading into the where they move back towards each other kind of era. In that, yeah, they're not together, but they figured out that they're going to get through this problem or this like patch together rather than going their separate ways. And like we said, they've been going their separate ways for 2 or 3 episodes, and like this side by side in almost every single episode, it hasn't exactly worked out. So maybe that's the point of the lesson here, that they always do find their way back to each other. But I'm looking forward to them just sharing more scenes together without the like weight of that conflict. Of course, they'll try to figure it out as we head towards the end of the season, but watching them argue with each other back and forth hasn't exactly been the most fun experience. So I just hope we get to see more of them as parallels again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to your point, I feel like to me, this episode wasn't like a romantic
Mm-hmm.
building block. It felt more like getting them to a place like an understanding emotionally to where they can be in the same room and feel okay about being in the same room without any extra baggage. Like, I don't, maybe I read it wrong, but it didn't feel like romantic. Like, I'm not like, oh, it's gonna happen next episode. They're gonna like start holding hands and try to break the curse again. Like, I just feel like, oh, okay, they got to a place and understanding with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what they needed to get to this whole time, but they were trying to do different things.
Well, to me, it came off like post breakup between two people who realize they really want to be in each other's lives, so they have to figure out how to be friends again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's, I mean, it very much felt like that to me. Like, I didn't get romance from it either, because I think both of them mentioned, we can't seem to stay away from one another, and I was like, yes, because you have a base of friendship. Like, it's not, they never were a relationship that had started from simply attraction. So you were going to want each other to be around. You're going to want to help each other. You're going to miss each other when you're around each other, because he was like, you were both there in each other's lives as friends first. So I think that's where we are. I think we're going to try to be friends again, despite our feelings, which I mean tracks, because Ace is a part of the Joker. It's not like they can just remove him. He's not a love interest who can just be shunted to the side for 4 episodes and then come back like Tristan.
That would have been a funny episode though, if Ace was like, I'm out, I can't like be involved in the group, and they would try to like welcome in some new person from the morgue and it just like was not working. That would have been a funny episode. They're like, no, Ace, we need you.
That would be really funny. We still have a lot of episodes left, so we have no idea if that would happen. So
I think they missed the on-ramp if they were going to tell that story. But yeah, I do have to say, like, a lot can happen in 5 episodes, so I don't think anybody should be concerned. There's still a path to everything that could happen. Like 5 episodes is a lot.
Yeah, we're not saying it's not endgame. I just want to be very clear. We're saying we're doing the post-breakup friendship part.
I'm trying to avoid what people are saying personally. I'll leave that there. So I don't know what the fears are, but just to quell any fears, I feel like I've been the one for Nancy to be like, we have time. And I know it feels like we're running out of time, and we are, but a lot can happen. And maybe a lot can happen and it'll feel like, oh, that was quick. Because in 90210, in the series finale, they just randomly put Adriana and Naveed back together after it was a disaster episode. There was like they went to a concert. It was a whole thing. There was an explosion, and they spent the series finale together. And granted, 90210 found out 5 minutes before filming the series finale that it was the series finale, so they had to, quickly lay some foundation for everything to be final. That's not the case here, but I'm just saying things can happen quickly, and whether they fully work or not is, to be seen. I don't think it's going to be as like, oh, we're just going to shove George and Nick together in the series finale and decide they get back together. I think if that's going to happen, it would be built a little bit more. But anyway, I rambled. Just that's all to say. There's still time. Like, there's a lot can happen in 5 episodes, especially in this show.
Yes, well, just a reminder. For I think that's the end of season one. Owen and Nancy get together at the end of the penultimate episode, and then this man dies in the next episode after Nancy was going to be going to Paris with him.
I don't
So,
mean to laugh. Rest in peace, Owen. Rest
but
in peace.
but it does move fast. So anyone who's concerned, that's just a reminder. Like, even if we got 2 episodes to go, that doesn't mean that in the penultimate episode, they don't just decide to do a storyline that makes them question their lives and then they're back together and we break the curse in the finale and then we bought a ticket to Paris. It can still happen.
And to quote Fran, to steal a phrase from Fran Drescher, I would bet dollars for donuts we're getting a flash forward at some point in the series finale. Like I would bet money. And oh my God, this episode especially, like I'm thinking about like, how is this going to end? Like that's a thought that keeps coming into my head as we get closer to the end. And I'm like, I want the last shot not to be like a cliffhanger, but to be like a seed of like, she's going to continue to be entrenched in the supernatural. Like I want the last shot to be like a or something juicy. Like I want the last shot to be something, not like, oh, a marriage or like everything's wrapped up in a bow. That'd be cute too, I guess. I don't know, but I just like I don't need like the Tom Swift like enormous cliffhanger. I just want to know that like, oh, this train's going to keep moving, whether it's 5 years in the future or like the next day.
Yeah.
You went
There's no
season
ending.
2, and was that is that season 2, episode 1's ending? Whichever one where Nancy's walking, and then she turns and she faces the camera like something happened. That ending.
Yeah. Something like in the vein of like the Batwoman season 3 ending, I think would be good. Something like everybody is in a happy place, but the adventures will still continue off screen. There's always going to be a new mystery that needs solved, or a new bad guy that needs taken down, or a new supernatural entity that Bess needs to exorcise. There's always going to be something there. And I hope that, because like, we love these characters so much. I hate the fact that this is only supposed to have been a year of their lives. It would have been so much more fulfilling if it was 4 years. And so I hope that
or
they
even
get many more
2.
years.
Each season was like a half of a year.
So it would be so much more fulfilling if we knew that they get to do this for years in the future, even when they do get their iconic careers and they do whatever it is they want to do with their lives, that they're still sitting there solving mysteries on the side. Of course, it'll be Nancy's main outlook, but you know what I mean? I hope that Nancy Drew, the adventures will continue for many more years off screen. I think that would be the perfect ending for a show like this.
Even the season 3 finale where like they showed people that the rest of the Drew crew settling into different outlets, and then Nancy's in her, she's started her business and she's like, where are the bodies? Like that's like it might be too much of a cliffhanger, but it's like the kind of ending where it's like, oh, we see them kind of like being okay, and then the supernatural's still gonna like come up behind them and say boo.
It's gonna be so fun though. They do seem to be laying the track for that, because like Nick and Bess, because Nick has to always have a business, is like they're going to do, I'm calling it a nonprofit, but they, so you have the basic Horseshoe Bay Historical Society, and then you have the shadowy secret one, which presumably is going to be in Icarus Hall by the end of the show. Because that makes the most sense to me. Because Nancy doesn't need to live in the Icarus Hall by herself. Go get a house. Go get a real house.
Yeah.
So it being over their secret society, their secret like paranormal investigators agency being at Icarus Hall just makes the most sense. Like move the whole collection from Horseshoe Bay Historical Society to that building. And
can someone tell me where Bess is living? Because this is a question I've had all season, and I'm confused. Where is Bess living? I think
it's a historical society because it's a house. So I think she's living upstairs.
I think so. I think they made a joke about that at one point.
Well, I would like to see it.
Yeah. It would be nice. But I also feel like, wait a second. They kept her from being able to go into the historical society at one point. So that means she was houseless. Did not know she lives there?
They didn't think that one through.
See, I just want to know where she's living, because that's always been like, she lived in a van in season 1, and then she lives with Nancy, and I'm like, where's Bess living? I also remember during this episode she has a girlfriend that we haven't seen.
Oh, did she mention Addie? Because I didn't.
No, she didn't. No. I just rememred.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I missed that. What's Addie doing?
She did not mention her. I was just like, oh, that's right. Bess has a girlfriend. Okay, move on.
Not everyone getting new love interest this season, and like Bess is the longest lasting relationship of the bunch, and nothing. Crumbs. Was
I am
clumsy with too
emotionally
much.
unavailable for whatever's happening with George and the study partner, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Would
Like, have your fun, like, do your little worksheets together, but like, I'm emotionally unavailable. I can't. No investments to be
The
made.
key takeaway there was just Nick realizing that, like, oh, dude actually is okay. You know what? I'll set this
Yeah.
up for her. And I was like, you're still touching him too much, but
I
okay.
would love best or not best. Oh my gosh, I'm like all over the place with this body swap episode. George go on a few dates and realize like, oh, he's like a law student like me. Is this what I want? No, I want George or Nick. I can't get all the names. It's all over the place. Like I could see that arc happening, and maybe that's what I want from it. I don't know. I just like I'm not getting invested. I'm not.
Mhm.
No, I can't do that.
I will say Phantom's confusing me though. I didn't expect Nick to be like him saying, I know you better than anyone, like totally fine, checks out. But like the I'm gonna be your wingman. I was like, we're in a comfortable spot. How long has it been since y'all broke off the engagement? We're comfortable being
5 days
wingman?
probably.
Confusion.
It is like, oh, okay, you're her wingman now, and she's like excited that you would do that for her. And I just feel like y'all been broken up for a solid year at this point. If we're okay doing that for her, but maybe he's just that settled in his relationship with Jade.
It's a lot really fast. No judgment, but you have to like stop and think to really get on the same level and page with them to be like, where were we? Where are we at now? But yeah.
Yeah, but I did like it's not toxic, no toxic masculinity there.
No,
none at all.
No.
Just a shade of jealousy at first, and then he took himself out of it and did something he thought would benefit her.
Nick continues to be at the same simultaneously the dad of the group and also baby girl.
It's very true.
Like that's his sweet spot right there.
Yes.
When Nancy did her monologue and he immediately stood up at the claw, I was like, I love you. I love you so much.
And then the shoulder grab, like the squeeze, like, yes, you're family. Like, we're family. I'm like, yes, you are. You are. I love this little group. They're just so amazing. I also like that he stood up to Miss Ma'am, who someone was like, I don't believe she's actually from this town. I was like, I don't believe she's actually from Hershey Bay either. But
starting a rumor she's the Sin Eater.
Yes. Accuse her, no evidence, lock her away.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Tristan beating these allegations.
Yes. But she's really it is interesting that they are sort of I would say this is probably like an E plot, maybe a D plot. That she is a representation of what's going on in America right now when it comes to censorship and concerned parents who are like just sending in different things about talking points about books that shouldn't be in libraries or books that shouldn't be available or accessed at schools. That's who she is in a nutshell, down to the crisis acting. Like she didn't even mention what she's concerned about as a parent who, what is it? Parents who believe in historical truths or something like that. She did like what exactly is wrong with historical society?
What did she call Bess? She was throwing words at our girl Bess, and I was like, "Hold me back,
extremist."
Hold me back.
She called her an extremist, and I was like,
"You're the extremist lady."
Yeah, I was like, and no one pushed back on that. Like in the audience, like they were like clapping for the lady to be there, and I was like,
she said it to Bess.
I know, and Bess like the immediately accent was there.
You don't mess with Bess.
No, I mean just like, and Bess is the sweetest, and this lady knows nothing about her. I highly doubt she knows anything about what's going on at the Historical Society.
But how are you born and raised in Horseshoe Bay and you're not getting a whiff of the weirdness that's happening in town? Like, wake up and smell the ghost, lady. It's here and it's happening.
All the time. Like, sure, y'all don't need to pop up at the council meeting like the man who was like, the what did he say? The tidal wave was based on a supernatural thing. Like, it was, but you need to shh.
Like, how are you from a town where you have like a ritual about the bucket of blood kicking things over, and you're just gonna like be barking at a meeting about Bess? I don't like it. I don't like her.
Like, that's why I don't believe she actually lives here. Like, I'm like, I don't think, because that's like the ML of groups like this. A lot of them don't actually come from the counties that they're meddling in.
No, I'm foil hat on. She's the Sin Eater because she's like, oh, look at everything else. Don't look at me. I'm the Sin Eater. Like, oh, everybody. Like, yeah, she's trying to. What's that called? I don't know what it's called. I don't know. other words like that, but like she's trying to like look over there, not at me.
Oh, a smoke screen?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's exhibit B right now. So she has 2 exhibits against her. And exhibit C, but we just don't like her. That's totally can be
That's number one.
Like, reasons why this woman is a sin eater. A, B, C. We don't like her.
But like Nick really was like very. So first of all, why are you standing in front of his car? I did not like that. Where she's just waiting for him, but also for him to be like, so I decided to turn down the council seat because I'm going to make sure people like you can't interfere with inclusion in this town. I'm like, you go, mayor. One day you'll be mayor of Horseshoe Bay, or wait, actually, will he be able to? You know, but it's not the last we've seen of her. Mm-mm.
No, but the look on her face after he put her in her place, so rewarding. Yeah, it's what she deserved. She tracked all the way out to the claw for no reason, just to get all of her insults handed back to her. It's what she deserved.
She had a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, a job.
I have one more thing to praise that I've been thinking about. I'm constantly like on objectification watch, it seems like, in the show. I don't know why. But something that I thought about that wasn't really a thought until we were talking about it, like the body swap plot. There was no weirdness about being in each other's bodies. No one was like, oh, like no one said anything weird. And I'm just like thankful because as much as it reminded me of like Scooby-Doo, the live action movie that we grew up with, I think there was some weirdness about that. There's always something about when you're in the opposite sex, you make some sort of reference to the body parts. And I'm like, I'm so glad that was not included in the show. And it continues to be a shining example of just telling the story. Just tell your story. And they did. And I didn't want to end the episode without praising that, because I think sometimes these shows need to be praised for doing the bare minimum, which is not being weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is lovely though, because like even when they were commenting, on being in a different body, it was very neutral. It's like, I just got shorter. Or just the touching of the hair, like it really is right there. My goodness. Or when Bess was like feeling Nick's muscles, that was about her suddenly having musculature, and then Nick got to be like, yeah, that's CrossFit, like twice a week. Or even when Ace as Nancy's hair gets adjusted, it's Nancy adjusting her own hair rather than him looking in the mirror and trying to primp her, which would be weird. So it's just the choices they make all the time to make sure that all the characters have their own bodily autonomy and that the gaze for the audience isn't like objectifying. I love when you praise them for it, because they do deserve to be praised for it. A lot of shows, they love a moment in which they can exploit like how characters are feeling about each other's bodies, or
and especially women,
just show it. Yeah. So there was none of that.
Completely avoided it. Very refreshing.
I love this show for that, for many reasons, but that reason in particular, that they're not trying to make anybody feel unsafe in the 5 main characters. Like I don't know. I just love, there's many things to praise about the show and this episode, but I wanted to make sure to call that out because it's really important.
I want to shout out real quickly, and this is not about what you just mentioned, Reed, but the scene in which Tom and Ace are on the boat, it's clearly stage work. And I'm like, can we bring that back? Because everyone wants to just be like scheduling time to actually be out on the ocean. And I'm just like, if y'all crying about budgets, this is why we don't need to do that anymore. Put them on a stage, fill it a little bit with water, and have someone in the back just toss a bucket over like, so that we can pretend a wave hit it. I think we need to get back to that when it comes to television. I think everyone's just gotten so used to the budgets they've been given that they want to do just something spectacular out on the ocean or anywhere you'd actually be on a body of water. It's like, it's not necessary. If we broke, we broke. So just like be
but
there.
Sometimes they make it look so good. Like I remember finding out that the lifeguard stand in the OC was on a soundstage, and I was like, you mean they weren't really on a beach? Like literally like 10 years after I'd been watching the show, I found out that it was on a stage and not on an actual beach. Maybe they did do some they did, I think, establishing shots on the beach, but like close up, they didn't have those kids out on a beach at 9 p.m. filming. Like, I don't know why I didn't put that together, but they can make it look so, that's TV magic. And I think, not to circle all the way back to our accidental rant from the top of the pod, but like, sometimes realism can take away from the magic of TV when everything looks like, oh, you put Jennifer Garner on a boat in the middle of a lake. Not that happened in the last thing you told me. That's just the first thing that came to mind. But like, and I know they do that in a lot of, and even in Nancy Drew, they're on a beach calling for the Igleika. But sometimes I think the three of us are advocates for a little bit of cheese and corniness and TV magic.
And sometimes keeping
the green
it simple.
Screens. Save a buck.
Yeah, keeping it simple sometimes works best. I know at first I was like, why are they going out fishing in Horseshoe Bay of all places in the dark this late at night? Yeah, exactly. But I mean, now I know why exactly that bad choice was made. And I mean, it worked. Smoke and mirrors. It was a nice little scene the episode couldn't have done without. And there was no need to overly complicate things with a huge expansive lake or with bad CGI. It was just exactly what it needed to be. And it worked like a dream.
Although, Ace, the next time you're dumping a cursed jar into the ocean, you toss it out a little.
Yeah.
You just like dropped it. But you know what? Made a memory.
He did. And a very nice one too.
I feel like that's a good place to end it though.
Yeah.